Blood dripped between his fingers as he had looked desperately running through the dense forest. The intended breath formed small clouds in the cold air of the African dawn. It was not his blood that stained his hands, but his grandmother's, the village's old man, who had been attacked by something Amara could not identify in the darkness of the cabin. A figure, fast as the wind and silent as death, had left the wise woman on the brink of death. "Find Oshun's amulet before the next sunrise, or we will all perish." It was the last words your grandmother managed to whisper before losing consciousness. Amara had no idea what this amulet was or where to find it. The Osun forest, which bordered its village in Ile-Ife, Nigeria, was vast and kept millennial secrets. According to the legends told around the fire, it was the home of ancestral spirits and deities that for a long time chose that sacred place to dwell. What Amara didn't know was that she was being observed. The eyes that followed her were not human. Among the shadows of the centenary trees, creatures that inhabited the threshold between the world of the living and the spirit world accompanied their every step. Some wanted to help her, others wanted her to fail on her mission. "Please, ancestors, guide my way," murmured as he walked away, and lianas who blocked his passage. The floor was damp and slippery, covered by a layer of decaying leaves that muffled their steps. That's when an unusual glow captured his attention. Something sparkled among the exhibited roots of a huge baobab, the sacred tree that, the elders told, had existed since the beginning of time. Amara hesitated. His grandmother always warned about the dangers of bright objects in the forest, which were often traps left by mischievous spirits. But something inexplicably attracted her to that luminous point. His feet seemed to move on his own will. When he realized, he was already kneeling before the roots of baobab, digging his soft earth with his own hands. When her fingers touched the buried object, Amara felt an electric discharge through her whole body. It was not painful, but a strange feeling, as if something was connecting to her at a level that transcended the physical. Carefully, he dug up what appeared to be a circular medallion of aged bronze with Adinkra symbols recorded on his surface. In the center, a deep blue stone sparkled as if the night sky continued to star in it. "Oshun's amulet," he whispered, instinctively recognizing the object, though he had never seen him before. The piece was heavier than it appeared and emitted a comforting heat that contrasted with the cold dawn. The moment he closed his fingers around the amulet, the world around him seemed to change. The forest sounds intensified. He could hear the creeping of small insects meters away, hitting nocturnal birds, and even the flow of sap inside the trees. The colors also became more vivid, even in the dimness of the night. An ancestral voice, which seemed to come from inside the amulet but also from the whole environment around him, sounded clear, as crystal-clear water in his mind. "Finally you arrived, daughter of Ife. We have been waiting for someone worthy for centuries." Amara almost dropped the amulet. Who is talking?" "I am many and I am one. I am the guardian of this sacred amulet, forged in the waters of the Osun River by the goddess herself millennia. You were chosen, Amara." The shock made her momentarily paralyzed. How did the voice know your name, and what did it mean to be chosen? Before he could formulate more questions, a noise of broken branches behind her made her turn abruptly. A hooded figure emerged from the darkness. Tall, imposing, his hidden face through the shadows of the hood, but his eyes shone with a supernatural light, red like Egnand. "Delivered the amulet, girl, and I will spare your life." The voice was deep and reverberated as distant thunder. "Run now, or perish forever." The voice coming from the amulet was urgent, almost desperate. Without thinking twice, Amara put the amulet around her neck and ran in the opposite direction to the hooded strange. Branches whipped his face and arms as she got more and more in the forest, guided only by the instinct and the weak moon that occasionally penetrated between the trees. Behind her he could hear the persecution. They were not human steps. They sounded more like sliding something big and heavy on the forest ground. An acre and sulfur smell filled the air, making your eyes tear. "What is that?" he asked breathlessly, without stopping. "Alaku, a soul devouring. It was sent by those who wish to use the power of the amulet for their harmful purposes," answered the voice of the amulet. "He will not rest until he gets it, or even destroying Hudor." An inhuman scream cut the night. so close that Amma had felt the hair on the back of his neck. Alaku was gaining ground. It was then that the amulet on his chest began to warm intensely. The blue stone in the center now emitted a bright light that illuminated its path. Amara felt a new force fill her tired muscles, and her vision became even more acute, allowing her to see in the darkness almost as if it were day. "The amulet is calling you," the voice explained. "He is recognizing his spirit as worthy of his power. Use it wisely." With this new energy, Amara managed to increase her speed, jumping over fallen trunks and diverting obstacles with superhuman agility. The amulet not only gave her physical strength, but seemed to guide her through the forest by ways she had never known. Eventually it came to a clearing where a small lake reflected the starry sky. The amulet had led her up to that purposely, he realized. "Stop here," commanded the voice. "This is a sacred place protected by Oshun. Alaku cannot step on its waters." Amara barely had time to get to the lake when Alaku broke out in the clearing. In the moonlight light, he could finally see his persecutor clearly, a creature that vaguely resembling a human, but with distorted proportions. 2 long arms that almost dragged on the floor, legs curved like an animal, and a head without defined features, except for the incandescent eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. The creature stopped on the edge of the clearing, growling and spilling her claws into the ground, apparently unable to move forward. Her body squirms like being contained by an invisible barrier. "You can't hide forever, bearer," sibidated Alaku, with a voice that sounded like stones being crushed. "My master will come, and not even the waters of Oshun can protect it." With these words, the creature retreated to the darkness of the forest, leaving only the echo of his growl in the air of the night. Tremendous, Amara sat by the lake, trying to calm her breath. The amulet on his chest had cooled, although he continued to emit a soft bluish shine. "Who are you?" he finally asked, heading for the amulet. "And why is this happening to me?" The lake surface waved, and the water came the reflection of a beautiful woman, adorned with gold jewelry and dressed in yellow and blue tissues. Although it was just a reflection, it conveyed an aura of divine power and grace. "I am Elegua, the guardian spirit of the paths and messenger of the Orishas," answered the voice, now coming from the reflection in the water. "I was designated by Oshun to dwell this amulet and guide the one that was chosen." "Chosen for what?" Amara asked, feeling the weight of the responsibility that was announced. "To restore balance," explained Elegua. "For centuries, a wizard named Babajide stole part of Oshun's powers and imprisoned them in 5 sacred relics, of which this amulet is one. With him, he intends to challenge his own Orishas and become a god among men." "His grandmother was not attacked by chance," he continued Elegua, the reflection in the water waking smoothly as he spoke. "She was the guardian of ancient knowledge and knew the location of the amulet. Babajide sent her servants to silence her before she could reveal where he was hidden." Amara felt a tightness in her chest when she thought of her grandmother. Will she survive? Elegua's reflection has taken on a compassionate expression. "Your grandmother's fate is in the hands of the Orishas now, but if you can gather the 5 fragments of Oshun's power before the next full moon, there is hope not only for her, but for all who Babajide threatens." 5 fragments? Amara looked at the amulet in her chest. Is this just one of them? Yes. The amulet of sight, which you now port, allows you to see beyond appearances and communicate with spirits. The other 4 are hidden in sacred places by the continent: the healing bracelet, the ring of transformation, the comb of wisdom, and the mirror of truth. The magnitude of the task began to reveal itself, and Amara felt a mixture of fear and determination grow within themselves. How am I going to find them? I have no idea where to look for. The amulet itself will guide her, answered Elegua. Each fragment resonates with others. Besides, you will not be alone on this journey. As if in response to the words of the spirit, a soft ruffle of wings sounded above the clearing. Amara looked up to see a large black bird landing on a nearby branch. It was not an ordinary bird. Its size was larger than that of an eagle, and its eyes shone with the same intelligence it saw in the Elegua reflection. "This is Kofi, a messenger from the Orishas," presented Elegua. "He will be your eyes in heaven and your guide when I can't speak directly to you." The bird tilted his head into a solemn reverence, fixing his penetrating eyes on Amara. With the first rays of sunshine dyeing the horizon, Amara felt the tiredness of the nightless night weigh about her shoulders. The Eloia reflection on the lake was beginning to fade with the growing brightness. "He must leave immediately," said the spirit. "Alaku will return with reinforcements at dusk. Your first search should be by the healing bracelet, hidden in the ruins of Grande Zimbabwe." "Great Zimbabwe?" exclaimed Amara. "This is thousands of kilometers from here. How will I get so far?" "The amulet will guarantee him passage," answered Elegua enigmatically. "Look in the next village by a man named Chiumbo. He has already dreamed of his arrival and is waiting to help her." Before Amara could ask more questions, the reflex disappeared completely, leaving only the quiet surface of the lake. Kofi, the blackbird, released a grate as if he called her to follow his way. Breathing deep, Amara got up. There was nothing with you but the body's clothes and the amulet in the neck. The nearest village was at least half a day of walking, and she didn't know any Chiumbo. "How will I convince you to help me?" murmured to herself. To his surprise, the amulet warmed slightly against his chest, and she heard Elegua's voice answer, "Show the amulet. He will recognize Oshun's symbol and know that you speak the truth." Guided by Kofi, who was flying low between the trees, Amara left the safety of the sacred clearing and wiped again in the forest, now illuminated by the soft light of the morning. Her stomach ranked hungry, and thirst began to tighten her throat. As if you feel your needs, the bird led it to a small source of crystal clear water, and then to a tree loaded with ripe fruits. Amara drank eagerly and harvested some fruits to eat on the way. After hours of walking, with the sun already tall in the sky, Amara finally spotted the first cabins of the village of Kofoduo. It was a modest settlement, with about 24 housing arranged in a circle around a central square, where some people gathered for their daily activities. Kofi flew ahead, landing on the roof of one of the fastest huts. Amara understood the sign and went there, feeling the curious eyes of the villagers following her footsteps. "Who are you, foreigners?" he asked a woman who would face grains in a wooden pestle. "My name is Amara. I come from Ile-Ife," she answered hesitantly. "I am looking for a man named Chiumbo." The woman's eyes widened by surprise. "Chiumbo told us that a young woman would come to him today. How did you know?" Amarara just smiled mysteriously, bringing her hand to the hidden amulet under her shirt. The woman seemed to notice the gesture and made a sign of respect, pointing to the cabin where Kofi had landed. "He's there, waiting for you since dawn. He said he had a dream." With his heart, rapidly, Amara approached the cabin and knocked softly on the door made of intertwined wood. A severe and melodious voice answered inside, "Enter Oshun's daughter. I was waiting for her." Inside the cabin, partially illuminated by cracks of light that entered the straw ceiling, was a middle-aged man with grey hair and a size that conveyed dignity. He was sitting on a treadmill, surrounded by various objects that Amara recognized as instruments of guessing. "Are you Chiumbo?" he asked, still stopped at the entrance. "It's myself," said the man with a warm smile, "and you are the young woman who found the sacred amulet. Show me." Without hesitation, Amara withdrew the amulet from the blouse, allowing her bluish shine to illuminate the environment. Chiumbo closed his eyes for a moment, as if absorbed that light, and when he opened them again, there was a new glow of determination in his gaze. "The spirits showed me their coming 3 nights ago," explained Chiumbo, inviting Amara to sit in front of him. "I saw a young woman carrying the light of Oshun, pursued by ancient shadows. I also saw the way that should go, and the dangers awaiting it." He got up and went to a wooden chest sculpted in the corner of the cabin, from where he removed an aged map, unfolding him carefully over the treadmill. "This map shows the sacred places of Africa, marked by the ancients. Grande Zimbabwe is here," pointed to a south point. "It's a journey of many days, even for fastest travelers." Amara felt the discouragement grow. "How will I get there in time to save my grandmother?" Chiumbo smiled mysteriously. "There are ways that only the initiates know, passages between the places that shorten the distances of the physical world." Rising again, went to a shelf full of small pots and leather bags. He selected some items and brought them close to Amara. "First, You will need provisions for the journey, he said, handing it a leather bag with dry foods and a water cantle, and some tools for protection. Among the items was a small knife with bone cable recorded with traditional symbols, a handful of dried herbs wrapped in banana leaf, and a cord with small shells and colorful beads. The knife is not just a weapon, but a tool for cutting what obstructs its way, both physical and spiritual, he explained. Herbs, when burned, remove evil spirits like the Alaku who has pursued it, and this cord is a protective talisman that will complement the power of the amulet. Amara accepted the gifts gratefully, tying the protective cord around her wrist. "There is something more I need to tell you," said Chumbo, his tone becoming more serious. "Babajide is not a simple wizard. He is his great-uncle." Amara felt like the floor was disappeared under her feet. My great-uncle? This is impossible. My grandmother never mentioned having a brother. "Because for her, he died many years ago," Chumbo answered with regret. Babajide and his grandmother, Nala, were children of an Oshun's powerful priestess. They were both trained in the mystical arts since childhood, but while Nala chose to use their gifts to heal and protect, Babajide was seduced by power. Chumbo served a herbal infusion for both of them as he continued his story. 50 years ago, Babajide tried to steal power directly from Oshun's sacred source. His grandmother prevented him, but not completely. He was able to fragment a part of the divine essence into 5 relics before being banned. "Why does he want this power?" Amara asked, still trying to soothe the revelation. "Immortality, power over life and death, dominion over the world of spirits," answered Chumbo. "With Oshun's complete power, he could challenge the natural order and even the other Orishas." Amara drank the infusion, feeling her tired body to gradually invigorate. "If my grandmother defeated him once, why is he returning now? The ban is weakening. Her grandmother knew that and was preparing for his return. So she was attacked. Babajide wanted to eliminate her before she could act against him again." "And why?" asked Amara, the question that most tormented her. "Why did the amulet choose me?" "The blood of your lineage flows into your veins. You inherited the gift of your grandmother and great-grandmother before her. The amulet recognizes this ancestral power." Chumbo consulted the position of the sun through a crack on the cabin wall. "We must go at dusk. The portals between places are stronger in the transition between day and night." The following hours were devoted to preparations. Chumbo taught Amara some basic enchantments of protection and how to channel the amulet's energy to amplify its perception. Kofi, the blackbird, remained vigilant on the cabin ceiling, occasionally going out to make recognition flights around the village. When the sun began to put on, painting the sky with shades of orange and red, Chumbo gathered his belongings in a small bag and signaled to him to follow him. "Where are we going?" she asked, adjusting the provisional bag to the shoulder. "For the sacred woods around the village. There is an old stone there, marked with Unknowingly symbols, the Orisha of forests and hunting. It is a portal for those who know how to activate it." They came out discreetly from the village, following an almost imperceptible trail, that serpent among increasingly dense trees. Kofi was flying ahead as a silent guide. As they advanced, Amara noticed subtle changes in the forest. The air seemed denser, loaded with an energy that made her skin tingling. The sounds of night animals were different from those they knew, as if they were entering a territory where the rules of nature changed slightly. "We are approaching the threshold," explained Chumbo, realizing his discomfort. "It's the point where our world and the spirit world touch." Finally, they reached a small clearing where a vertical stone, similar to a rustic obelisk, was lonely. Its surface was covered with carved symbols that seemed to shine gently in the light of the twilight. "Erinli's portal," Chumbo announced with reverence, "one of the many secret ways scattered throughout the land of ancestors." He withdrew a small container containing a reddish dust from his bag and began to draw symbols on the ground around the stone. As he worked, he chanting a song on an old dialect he had not recognized, but who resonated deeply with the amulet on his chest, making him vibrate in response. "When the portal opens," Chumbo instructed, briefly interrupting his ritual, "you must cross it without hesitation. Think firmly in Great Zimbabwe as it passes. Your intention will guide the way." Chiumbo finished the circle of symbols and was positioned before the stone, arms erected in invocation. His words became increasingly intense, his voice acquiring a quality that did not seem entirely human, as if other voices joined his own, creating a supernatural harmony. The amulet in Amara's chest shone now intensely, responding to the call. She could feel Elegua manifesting herself through him, adding her power to the ritual of Chiumbo. Suddenly, the air around the stone began to erode, as the effect of heat on the asphalt on scorching days. The ripple increased until the space itself seemed to rip, revealing a light opening that did not show the continuation of the forest, but a completely different panorama, a starry sky over rock formations that did not belong to that place. "Now!" shouted Chiumbo. "Cross now!" Amara hesitated for just a second before moving off decisively towards the opening. Passing the threshold, he felt as if his body was being simultaneously stretched and compressed. The colors around him mingled in a dizzying whirlwind, and for a moment had the feeling of floating in a vast nothing. So, as abruptly as it had started, the feeling ceased. His feet touched firm soil again, and as he recovered his balance, Amara found himself in a radically different environment. It was at the top of a hill under a more brilliant starry night sky than anyone he had ever seen. In front of him, illuminated by the full moon, stone structures, walls, towers, and circular constructions extended through a vast area were lifted up. "Great Zimbabwe," whispered, recognizing the historical site of the descriptions he had heard and seen in schoolbooks. A beating of wings announced the arrival of Kofi, who landed on a nearby stone. Surprisingly, Chiumbo also emerged from the portal moments later, looking exhausted by the effort of the ritual. "We managed," he said, leaning on his staff to recover his breath. "But we don't have much time. The portal will only remain stable until dawn." Amara looked around, impressed by the grandeur of the ruins. "How will we find the bracelet in this huge place?" "The amulet will guide us," said Chiumbo, gradually recovering his strength. "Focus on the bracelet. View it by responding to the call of the amulet you carry." Amara closed her eyes and held the amulet between her hands, trying to project her thoughts as Chiumbo had taught. For a moment nothing happened. Then he felt the metal warm and pulse, as if he had acquired his own beat. As he opened his eyes, he saw that the blue pedra in the center of the amulet emitted a ray of faint light that pointed in a specific direction to the heart of the ruins. "There," pointed out, "it's calling us to that central structure." With Kofi flying over them as a sentry, Amara and Chiumbo carefully descended the hill and entered the large Zimbabwe archaeological complex. The stone walls, built without mortar and perfectly fitted, rose imposing in the moonlight, creating mysterious shadows that seemed to move with their own life. This place was a large center of power for centuries, Chiumbo explained as they walked, not just a prosperous kingdom, but a nexus of mystical knowledge. Zimbabwe's ancient priests knew the secrets to communicating with the ancestors and the Orishas. "Is that why Babajide hid the bracelet here?" asked Amara. "Yes, he hid each fragment in places where the barrier between the worlds is naturally thinner, making them harder to detect." They followed the amulet's beam of light until they reached an impressive circular construction, the great venue with its walls of 10 meters high. The entrance was partially blocked by rubble, forcing them to squeeze to pass. Inside, the light of the amulet intensified, pointing to a specific section of the inner wall. As they approached, Amara noticed carved symbols on the stone, similar to those of the amulet, but much more worn out of time. "Here," he said, passing his fingers over the carvings. "There is something behind this wall." Chiumbo examined the structure with experienced eyes. "It's not a solid wall. It's a sealed passage." Zimbabwe builders were masters in creating secret cameras within their structures. Looking for some mechanism that opened the secret passage, Chiumbo pressed different points of the stone wall. Amara watched carefully when she noticed that one of the carved symbols was identical to the center of the amulet. "Wait," he said, gently pushing Chiumbo. "I think I know how to open it." She withdrew the amulet from the neck and pressed it against the corresponding symbol on the wall. Immediately, the blue stone of the amulet and the notch began to shine with the same intensity, emitting a low tinnitus that seemed to vibrate through the entire structure. Slowly, a wall segment began to move, sliding to the side and revealing a narrow passage that descended into darkness. "Amazing," murmured Chiumbo. "The technology of the ancients, enhanced by the magic of the Orishas." Amara replaced the amulet around her neck, noticing that now he throbbed faster, as if anxious. "We're close," she said. The passage was narrow and descended in a gradual spiral. The air became increasingly cold and damp as they advanced. Chiumbo lit a small torch that carried in his bag, illuminating the path in front of him. After what seemed eternity coming down, they came to a surprisingly wide underground chamber. The ceiling was tall enough so that they could stand comfortably, and the walls were adorned with rock paintings preserved by the absence of sunlight and moisture. In the center of the chamber, over a carved pedestal, an object that shone with its own light was rested. A massive gold bracelet, embedded with small green stones that resembled emeralds. Its surface was decorated with intricate patterns that flowed as frozen water in time. "The bracelet of healing," whispered Amara, feeling mesmerized by the beauty of the artifact. When he stepped toward the pedestal, but Chibo held his arm, preventing her from moving forward. "Wait," warned. "Nothing so valuable would be without protection. There must be traps." As if responding to Chiumbo's words, the chamber floor began to tremble. From the shadows in the corners of the enclosure, ethereal figures began to materialize, bright silhouettes that slowly gained shape and substance. There were 7 warriors, dressed in traditional costumes of different eras and African regions. Their bodies were semi-transparent, as if they were made of dense smoke, but their eyes shone with an intense and conscious light. "Ancestral guardians," murmured Chiumbo, making a respectful gesture of greeting. "Spirits of the great warriors of the past, assigned to protect the sacred artifacts." The warriors formed a circle around the pedestal, where the bracelet, his weapons, spears, axes, and swords pointed to the intruders. "Who dared to disturb Oshun's rest of the power?" He thundered the voice of the central warrior, a tall man with adornments who identified him as an ancient Zulu king. Amara felt the amulet warm against her skin and instinctively knew what she should do. He stepped ahead and raised the amulet so that all the guardians could see him. "I am Amara, granddaughter of Nala, guardian of the knowledge of Ile Ife. I come by order of the Oryxars themselves to gather the fragments of Oshun's power before they fall into Babajidi's hands." The warrior spirits exchanged glances, evaluating their words. The warrior Zulu approached, studying the amulet with intensity. "The amulet of vision recognized you as a dignified," he said after a moment. "But that's not enough. The bracelet can't be delivered without a test." "What test?" Amara asked, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "The truth test," answered the guardian. "The healing bracelet can only be carried by someone with a heart truly focused on the preservation of life. If your intentions are impure, the bracelet will reject you, fatally." Chibo took a step forward, placing himself beside Amara. "She is the chosen one. Your heart is pure." The warrior Zulu turned to him with a penetrating look. "This we will soon find out." The ancestral warriors opened the circle, creating a path to the pedestal. Amara took a deep breath, seeking courage. I was afraid, but also a deep determination. He thought of his grandmother, wounded and perhaps dying, and in all the lives that would be in danger if Babajidi gathered Oshun's power before her. "I'm ready," he said, slowly advancing the open way. As he approached the pedestal, he could feel the energy emanated by the bracelet. It was not just an object of power, but something semi-village, pulsating with Oshun's essence. The guardian Zulu followed by his side. "Touch the bracelet and declare your intentions aloud. The artifact will judge the truth in your heart." Amara stretched out her handshake on her golden bracelet. Its surface shone even more intensely closely, the green stones sparkled as if they contained stars. "I seek the healing bracelet to restore the broken balance," he declared in a firm voice. "To save my grandmother and prevent Oshun's power from falling into the hands of the ones who would use it to cause suffering. I swear to use it only to heal and protect, never for personal gain or dominion over others." By touching the bracelet, A wave of energy went through his body. It was as if each cell was being examined, every thought and intention scrutinized by an ancient and powerful consciousness. For a terrible moment, Amara felt as if she was being consumed by fire. The pain was almost unbearable, and she fought not to remove her hand. Then, as abruptly as it began, the burning sensation became a comforting heat that spread throughout its being. The bracelet began to shine with blinding intensity, levitating from the pedestal and floating to the extended wrist of Amara, where she closed softly, as if she had been done specifically for her. "The bracelet accepted you," announced the guardian Zulu, slightly tilting his head in respect. "Your heart was judged true." Amara looked marvelous at the bracelet on her wrist. He could feel his power flowing into her, complementing the energy of the amulet. The two fragments seemed to communicate with each other, creating a harmony that strengthened both. He barely had time to admire his bracelet when a deafening crash shook the entire camera. Dust and small stone fragments began to fall from the ceiling, and the floor trembled violently under its feet. "We were found," warned Chiumbo, running to Amara's side. "Babajide must have felt the activation of the bracelet." The ancestral guardians wielded their weapons, turning to the entrance of the chamber. The spirit of the warrior Zulu approached Amara. "You must escape. We will use our energy to contain them as much as possible, but our power is linked to the bracelet. With their removal, we weaken." As a confirmation of his words, the passage through which they had exploded in a rain of stones and dust. Through the expanded opening, 3 grotesque figures advanced. Creatures similar to Alaku, who had persecuted Ama in the forest, but each with distinct and even more terrible characteristics. "Devadores," whispered Chiumbo with horror. "Babajide sent 3 of them." The ancestral guardians launched themselves against the invaders without hesitation. Although they were spirits, their weapons seemed to affect the devourers, who howled pain with each scam received. "Is there another output?" Amara asked desperately as the spiritual battle unfolded before them. "There must be," said Chiumbo, quickly examining the walls of the camera. These old cameras always had escape routes for the priests. Kofi, who had remained silently perched on the shadows of the ceiling, descended on a shallow flight and insistently began to bicar a specific section of the wall opposite to the entrance. "There." Amara ran to where the bird indicated, passing her fingers through the surface of the wall. "There is another passage here, I can feel it." While Chiumbo joined her to examine the wall, a dying shout cut the air. One of the ancestral guardians had been defeated, his spiritual form dissipating himself as fog under the sun. The others kept fighting bravely, but they were clearly losing ground. "Use the bracelet!" he shouted Chiumbo over the noise of the battle. "He must respond to your command, just like the amulet." Amara looked at the golden bracelet on her wrist. "How should you use it? I had no idea how to activate your powers." Instinctively, he pressed him against the wall where they suspected there was a passage, while concentrating his thinking in the desire to find a way. The bracelet has emitted a green power pulse that spread through the surface of the wall like water. The stones began to reorganize, sliding over each other until they form a large enough opening to pass. "Go!" he shouted the guardian Zulu, who was now fighting 2 Devuves simultaneously. "Don't let the power fall into the wrong hands." With no time for hesitation, Amara and Chiumbo entered the newly opened passage, with Kofi flying ahead. As soon as they passed, the stones began to close again, sealing the way behind them. The tunnel was narrow and ascended at a steep angle. They ran blindly, guided only by the weak light emitted by the amulet and the bracelet. The sound of the battle was behind, replaced by the echo of their own hasty steps and panting breaths. "What were those creatures?" Amara asked as they climbed. "Spirits devourers," said Chiumbo between heavy breaths, "Babajide's wicked creations. He sacrificed human beings and merged his essences with shadow entities to create servants that can cross the veil among the worlds." The tunnel curved and branched occasionally, but Kofi seemed to know instinctively which way to go. After what looked like an eternity of climbing, Amara began to feel a fresh breeze. They were approaching the surface. Finally, the tunnel ended in an opening partially covered by vegetation. Practiced the shrubs, they emerged in a different part of the ruins of Grande Zimbabwe, far from the great enclosure where they had entered. The sky was beginning to lighten the east. The dawn approached, which meant that the portal Chibo had opened would be closing soon. "We need to go back to the portal before it dawns completely," warned Chiumbo, guiding the stars that still shone in the western sky. They started running toward the hill where they had arrived, but they had not traveled 100 meters when a terrible roar sounded behind them. One of the devourers had managed to follow them and now emerged from the same opening where they had escaped. "Keep running!" he shouted Chiumbo, stopping and turning to face the creature. "I'll delay you." "No." Amara also stopped, refusing to abandon her guide. The creature advanced quickly, its claws leaving deep marks on the ground. Chiumbo removed a handful of the protective herbs from his bag and threw them into the air, reciting words of power. The herbs inflamed spontaneously, forming a temporary barrier of blue fire between them and the devouring. The creature hesitated by the mystical flames, but it was evident that the barrier would not last long. Her red eyes were fixed on Amara, or more precisely, the artifacts she carried. "The bracelet," said Chiumbo urgently. "It's the healing bracelet. Use it." "As?" asked Amara, desperate. "I don't know how to activate it." "The intention is all in the magic of the Orishas. Visualize what you want and channel your will through artifact." As the barrier of fire was beginning to weaken, Amara closed her eyes and concentrated on her bracelet on her wrist. He felt his warmth, the vibrant energy that throbbed in tune with his own heart. Healing, thought intensely. Restoration. The bracelet responded instantly, emitting an intense green shine. Amara felt an ancestral knowledge flowing to her mind, not in words, but in sensations and images that somehow made perfect sense. She reached for the devourer, who now crossed the last traces of the fire barrier. A radius of green light emanated from the bracelet, reaching the creature in the chest. The effect was immediate and surprising. When touched by the green light of the bracelet, the devourer emitted a scream that was no longer anger, but relief. Her body began to transform the scaly skin, and the claws retreated, the distorted form gradually reorganizing in a human silhouette. In a matter of seconds, where before was a monster, now there was a kneeling man, shaking and crying. Her eyes, not more incandescent but brown and very human, looked at Amara with unspeakable gratitude. "You freed me," he whispered with a hoarse voice, as if he didn't use it for a long time. Amara was amazed. "Who are you?" "My name is Kwame," answered the man with difficulty. "I was captured by Babajide there. I don't know how long. He turned my body and imprisoned my soul, forcing me to serve it." Chiumbo approached cautiously, still suspicious. "The healing bracelet not only restores physical injuries," he explained. "He can cure corruptions of his own essence." The sky kept lightening quickly. Kofi flew in circles on them, emitting urgent screams. "We have no time," warned Chiumbo. "The portal is closing." Amara looked at Kwame. "Come with us." The man tried to get up, but his legs, not used to the human form, failed. "Go," he said. "I'm too weak to accompany them. I will find my own way back to the world." Reluctantly, Amara and Chiumbo resumed their race toward the portal. They arrived at the hill where they had appeared to see the unstable dimensional opening, their edges starting to contract. "Fast!" Chiumbo pushed Amara toward the portal. "You should go first. It is essential that artifacts arrive safely." With no time for farewell, Amara launched herself through the opening. The same dizzying feeling as before took over her, body colors blending, dimensions bending, and then she was again in the Osun forest clearing, falling to her knees on the wet grass. Moments later, Chiumbo emerged from the portal, which closed behind him with a snap of energy that reverberated through the forest. The sun was born on the horizon, bathing Osun's forest with its golden light. Amara and Chiumbo remained silent for a few minutes, recovering from the strenuous experience they had lived. The amulet and bracelet shone smoothly, as if they talked to each other in their own language. Amara could feel the combined power of the two artifacts flowing through her body, strengthening and invigorating her. "We got it," I said finally, still marveling at the fact. He raised his wrist to admire the bracelet. In the light of day, green stones were even more impressive, capturing and reflecting the light in ways that seemed impossible. Kofi, who had crossed the portal with them, landed in a nearby branch, his black feathers gleaming like polished obsidian. "Yes, but this was only the first stage of the journey," said Chiumbo, lifting with some difficulty. "For there are still 3 fragments to be found, and Babajid will surely redouble your efforts to prevent it." "My grandmother," he remembered Amara suddenly. "I need to go back to her. The bracelet can heal her." He got up in a jump, feeling a renewed urgency. Chiumbo nodded, understanding its priority. "Your village is a few hours of walking from here," he said, "but be careful. Babajidi's servants are probably watching the place." "Don't you come with me?" Amara asked, surprised. Chiumbo smiled kindly. "My role on this journey was to help her find the first fragment. Now I should look for information about the location of the others. We'll meet again when it's time." He made a respectful gesture of farewell and added, "Trust the amulet and bracelet. They will guide it and protect, and remember Eligua is with you just like Kofi." As it was understood that it was being mentioned, the blackbird raised flight and landed on Amara's shoulder, clearly indicating that it would accompany her.